Hey everybody, how you doing? I hope you're all well during this time of self-isolation and social distancing thanks to COVID-19. I myself am practicing social distancing as my job is still considered essential. However, at this point, the government calling your job essential is much like your stripper calling you her favourite. It's a bit of a joke, but we'll do what we can while the government's allowing and making so-called decisions. Anyway, I'm out here, yes, self-isolated, I guess, at this point, but more social distancing as I am still out in public. It's just that there's nobody around here for quite some distance at the workshop. So time to knock out a bit on the patrol. Phase 2 finished quite some time ago. I just haven't got around to uploading a video or anything on it. So we'll check that out in a minute. Right at the moment, what I've had to do is fix a broken exhaust stud. So if we look behind me here, you'll see the motor has been all stripped down and the stud has been replaced. I have taken the manifold and everything off. It's all been cleaned up. This here stud was snapped off. It had to be drilled out and a new one fitted. And it's now time to start putting it back in. Here's the exhaust manifold there, all nice and clean. Bang that back in and stop it chuffing. Get it running nice and smooth again. Then we can get back to phase 3. We're going to be starting the install on some of the accessories for phase 2. On the bonnet there I have the radio, UHF antenna and dual battery isolator. The radio should be pretty easy to fit in. I actually pulled it out of this vehicle and fitted it to the Jackaroo a while back. So hopefully it'll just be a plug and play. I'm not sure whether there's still speakers in the door or not, but if there isn't, we'll sort that out with the central locking. Okay, we have the stereo fitted. Luckily it was just a matter of plugging it in. I did have to swap the battery and ignition wires over. They must have been wired up differently in the Jackaroo, but nice, quick, simple fix. Speakers were in the door, so we have sound. It's a nice, simple job. Hopefully everything else turns out that easy. Next, we're going to move on to installing the UHF antenna. Okay, so I got talking at lunch and ended up not getting around to installing my UHF antenna. So now that work's over, we're going to get into it. I've already got a mount here on the bull bar. I'm just going to put a small nick in to make the installation a little bit easier. And if it ever needs to be removed, I don't have to pull the whole cable through. It's just a matter of loosening off the bolt, lifting it up, and you can slide it out of the way. So let's do that now. Hey, safety first. I've just gone to install my UHF antenna and there is no real spot in through the firewall on this side. It doesn't already have something running through it that I don't want it to run beside, so I have to pull this out and make a new grommet. There's there'll be a number of wires that need to run through the firewall. The UHF antenna is on hold as we have to put a hole in the firewall to run the cable through. So I'm going to use this time before we shut the shop to install this UHF, which we will be fitting up here where the old one used to be back when I bought the vehicle. So today's challenge is installing central locking into the old beast. Bought a kit here. It's off eBay, controller, wiring loom, and some actuators. This one is the master actuator, the extra wires. The others just have two, they're called slave actuators. What I've done already is I've been having a bit of a play, worked out where I'm going to mount it, drilled some holes, trying to keep it fairly well in line with the actual door locking mechanism, and yeah, about to mount that up and hopefully all goes well. I've kind of just guessed the holes, hoping they're in roughly the right spot, but we'll find out in a moment. So I've got it mounted up, all secured. These are the wires coming out. Just doing a test on it. So I've got a battery on the ground here, I'm going to hook up, and hopefully that lock drops down. Beautiful. That's what we wanted to see. So door number 1 complete. Now to run the loom for it, and then we can move on to the next door. Okay, so one rear door is now fitted. Still has to be wired, but it's fitted and been tested, it's working. This one gave me a bit of a problem as the locking mechanism is over here. So we have a horizontal bar running, and the door trim sits basically perfectly flat against there, allowing no room for the actuator to be installed on the outside. And on the inside, I don't know whether you can see here, but there is a very minimal room between the window and where I managed to get the actuator right here installed. I think it ends up about 2 mil clearance, and that was about the only spot that I could find that actually cleared all the mechanism. So then offset the actuator, so we had to bend up this bar a bit and shorten it to get it to fit. Now I'm going to pull it off, change the plug on the wires to a waterproof connector, and I'll then also have to run a wire through the door and out the B pillar, as there is no wires currently going into the rear doors. The weekend now, I'm on call, so I can't venture too far from the workshop. This turns out to be a great opportunity to get a bunch of work done on the patrol, hopefully complete phase 2. Haven't had any calls really this morning, so plenty of time. I've got the central locking, all the actuators mounted. The front 2 doors are fully functional. Got to do some extra modifications to be able to run the wiring for the rear doors, as there's currently no access inside the doors. So I've just put that on hold for the moment, and I'm now going to be fitting the driving lights. I don't know how I feel about the location of them yet, but the mounts are already there, so we'll see how they go. Just a bunch of King's Dominator 7 inches. I think they should do a pretty good job. Continuing on with the driving light installation, I've mounted the fuse box. I've also made a bracket for mounting relays. It's just over there drying at the moment. But now that I know where everything is going to go, I can run some wires so that once that's dried, it can be whacked in and we can hook it up. For now, let's run some wires. Okay, so a little update as I've done a bit more work. As you can see here, this is the bracket that I made up and have painted for the relays, my fuse box, and this is the dual battery isolator, which I chucked in while I was drilling holes and everything else. Plus, it is actually going to feed the power to my fuse box, as I'll run one wire from the positive terminal of the battery down, and yeah, I'll just tee off to the fuse box. Phase 2 of the patrol build is essentially now done. It still needs a bit of tidying up in the wiring and that, although that can wait till the very end once I have everything in, so I know exactly how things are running and how many wires are going to be in those spots. I'll start in the engine bay, seeing as the bonnet's already open. You'll notice on the front that it's been fitted out with a set of King's 7-inch driving lights, and they are nice and bright. We have dual battery system all in place. This is where most of the work's been done, just down in here. Fuse box, battery isolator, it's a relay for the headlights, UHF antenna. Apparently the small ones are good for hilly areas like we've got here, so we'll give that a try, although I do have a slightly larger one that came with the kit. Moving inside now. We have a UHF up here. Goes out to the aerial, as well as now kitted out with a radio. And finally, we have this. Central locking. So I think that just about checks off everything I had on the list for phase 2. Whole car needs a really good clean. A few other little bits and pieces that I've noticed along the way. However, yeah, happy with it. And it's time to move on to phase 3, which is going to be a lot more work, as there's quite a bit of custom stuff to do as we turn this thing from a general 4-wheel drive into a camper van and a bit of a second home for the winter season once the snow hits the ground. And the exhaust leak is fixed. What a painful job that was. One I hope to never have to do again. But yeah, she's running all sweet now. That's a bonus. Hopefully there won't be too many more little issues going on like that, and we can just focus on the actual build. So yeah, phase 2 is totally finished now, and it's time to focus on phase 3, which I have actually done a bit of starting on. I've half built the bed and yeah, got the other parts required. So yeah, it's time to get stuck into that. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.
If I bleed tonight, if I am sad tonight, I don't have